Ready.
Are you ready?
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Happy Friday. Welcome into You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports. I am PJ Glasser with you guys for the next 3 hours. We got a lot to get into today. Make the day legendary. We're going to talk some World Cup. We got Spain, Belgium today. We got 2 more World Cup games tomorrow. We'll recap Morocco and France from yesterday here in a little bit. We had the top 2 picks in the NBA draft. AJ Debinsa, Darren Peterson square off yesterday. We'll dive into that matchup from Las Vegas. We'll talk some football on the show today. We'll, of course, talk some NFL. As you guys, I'm sure, know, following the National Football League, there is a team just about every year that goes from worst to first, where they finish last in their division, and then the following year, they finish first. We'll look at all 8 of those teams, and I'll tell you who I think has the best chance to go worst to first. We'll talk some college football on the show today. It's July 10th. We're getting closer and closer, under 2 months from the season starting. I'll give you guys my 12 teams to make the college football playoff on the show today. My buddy Joe Malfa going to join us here in about 20 minutes to break down the World Cup, and we'll give you live updates from Wimbledon. We got the 2 men's semifinals today. Alexei Zverev, Arthur Ferry playing right now, and then the big one between Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic to follow that. And then we'll talk some golf. Genesis Scottish Open, second round. Myself, our guy Tyler Morales behind the scenes. We're sweating out some Wyndham Clark during the show today. So a lot to get into for July 10th, a lot to discuss. Fired up for it. As always, you guys can watch the show, youtube.com/@Kostos. And of course, you can listen on the Westwood One app and Sirius XM channel 375. But let's dive in to what we saw yesterday. First off, it felt like an eternity waiting for the World Cup to come back, didn't it? We had, 27 straight days of just games all day. This tournament has been absolutely spectacular. And then on Wednesday, it was just like, it's almost that feeling like when the NFL season ends, or when you get those first 4 days of March Madness and then that Monday comes around, you just have all those weeks of consecutive football or all those days of basketball and then nothing. And that's what Wednesday felt like. It was great to have a game back yesterday. France and Morocco out in Foxborough. And a lot of people thought maybe Morocco could keep this one close, maybe send it to extra time, maybe even penalty kicks, pull the upset on France. It was looking like that way a little bit as we had a 0-0 game going into about the 60th minute. Mbappe scores an unbelievable goal, and then 6 minutes later, Dembele follows 2-0 France. They hang on to win. The under 2.5 cashes, which was nice. But France, who right now is the overwhelming favorite to win the World Cup, they're about plus 135, plus 140 at most markets. They are the team to beat right now. They're a perfect 6-0 in the tournament. They've won every game that they've played. They're outscoring their opponents 16-2 right now. And again, that 3-headed monster, that trio of Mbappe, Dembele, and Olise, I mean, that's as good as it gets in the world of soccer right now. And all those guys have been unbelievable. Mbappe's got 7 goals. He's now got 20 for his career in the World Cup, which is tied most all time with the GOAT, Lionel Messi. And then you have Dembele, who had a hat trick earlier in the tournament, and he's got 5 goals. So France looks like an absolute wagon right now. Most people that you would talk to, they will tell you that France is the best team in the tournament. They're likely to win it. When Joe Malfa joins us in about 15 minutes, I'm sure he'll probably say the same thing, that France is indeed the team to beat. But I think what's interesting about this World Cup and the teams that we have remaining, I was thinking about parallels that we've had in the world of sports this year, because that's what we do, right? When we're in tournaments like this, maybe sometimes we look at parallels. We look at this matchup reminds me of this matchup, or the way that this tournament is unfolding has reminded me of maybe other tournaments in the NHL, MLB, NFL, whatever it may be. I personally, and I know a lot of people aren't going to feel this way, but I personally feel like France and Spain, I think Spain is going to beat Belgium today. I think if France and Spain meet up in the semifinals, I think that is essentially your World Cup final. I think the winner of France and Spain is going to end up winning the tournament. Now, some people can certainly make the case for England. There are others that think Argentina could still win. They've survived their last 2 knockout games, but survived advance. They got Messi. They won it 4 years ago. Maybe they're going to do it again. I personally, though, feel like France and Spain are the 2 best teams. And I think if they meet up in the semis, which I'm expecting to happen, I think whoever wins that game is going to end up winning the World Cup. And it made me think back to some of the sports, the tournaments that we've had, the playoffs that we've had so far in this calendar year. And we have had 3 examples, and Kenny is typing them in the chat, and he's exactly right. We've had 3 examples this year where when we've essentially gotten to the semifinal round, when we've gotten to the semifinal round, a lot of people have categorized that semifinal matchup as the de facto championship. And that is essentially what I'm doing with France and Spain. So the 3 examples, the first one is going to be the NFC Championship game, Seahawks and Rams, where Seattle ended up beating LA in Seattle. They went to the Super Bowl. They beat New England. A lot of people felt like going into conference championship week, the winner of that game would end up winning the Super Bowl. They were correct. Those were the 2 best teams in football. Seattle ends up beating the Rams, and they win the Super Bowl. How about in the Final Four? Michigan and Arizona. Those were the 2 best teams in the sport just about all year. When we got to the Final Four, UConn made a great run. Illinois had a good team, but we all thought the winner was going to be Michigan or Arizona. Whoever won that semifinal was going to end up winning the championship, which is what ended up happening. And then you had the Western Conference final. You had the Spurs and Oklahoma City, where going into the conference finals, just about everybody thought whoever won that matchup between those 2 teams was going to end up winning the NBA title. Now, we know the Knicks ended up winning it, but I mean, do you remember going into that Western Conference final? Do you remember after that game 1, how many people were like, how are the Knicks or the Cavs going to beat one of these 2 teams in a best of 7? It's just not going to happen. And we obviously found out the Knicks were able to beat San Antonio. But if you think back, those 3 games, Seahawks, Rams, Michigan, Arizona, Spurs, OKC, all examples of times where we have gone in, we as a collective group of people have gone in saying those semifinal matchups are essentially the championship. And I feel the same way about Spain and France. Now, to make it even more interesting, if you think about those 3 matchups, think about who the more popular team was going into that game, who more people were picking to win that game. Seahawks and Rams. The game was in Seattle. The Seahawks were favored, but people were picking the Rams. It was Sam Darnold against Matt Stafford. It was Sean McVay. It's Puka. It's the Rams. They got the best team in the NFL. More people were picking the Rams in that game, but the Seahawks ended up winning, and they won the Super Bowl. How about Michigan and Arizona in the Final Four? 2 great teams. Michigan was a slight favorite. At the time, there were a lot of people that couldn't believe Arizona was an underdog in that game. There were a lot of people that couldn't believe you were getting plus money on Arizona to win a college basketball game. More people liked Arizona than they liked Michigan in that game. And we all know what happened. Michigan ended up beating Arizona. And then, of course, the Spurs and Oklahoma City. OKC was like a minus 250, minus 260 favorite. They're the defending champs. We've seen them do it. The Spurs have the alien in Wemby, but it's their first playoffs, right? They're not going to beat OKC in their first playoffs. A majority of people were picking Oklahoma City to beat the Spurs. And we know what ended up happening. Tell me Spain and France doesn't have the same feel to all 3 of those games. It feels so similar to all 3 of those matchups. And France feels very similar to the way that people did about the Rams, how they did about Arizona, and how they did about OKC. It feels like it's the same thing. And I caution people, because look, I'm watching the same game that we all are, right? France looks incredible. They're appealing to the eye. The way that they play, the offense, that trio that we were talking about with Mbappe, Dembele, and Olise, they're fun. That's a team people wants to root for. They want to bet on. Spain has not given up a goal this entire tournament. They've played 5 games. They have not conceded 1 goal. They were the pre-tournament favorite. And again, I draw this parallel to maybe France being OKC and the Spurs being Spain. Think about kind of the similarities between the two groups, right? France is kind of the OKC of this tournament. They won the World Cup 8 years ago. They were in the World Cup final 4 years ago. Mbappe certainly could be like your SGA a little bit, one of the best players in the world, if not the best, certainly could end up winning Golden Boot. And then Spain is the Spurs. You have Lamine Yamal, who's Wemby. He's the next phenom. He's the next teenager, the young up-and-coming stud. Spain is a younger team. And even though at times their play doesn't look as appealing, they don't look as fun as maybe an OKC or France does, they just get the job done. And I promise you guys, if Spain ends up beating Belgium today, France matches up with Spain in the semifinals, there are going to be a lot of people that like France in that game. France is going to be the favorite, no question. They're huge favorites right now to win the World Cup. They will be big favorites against Spain. And there are going to be a lot of people that side with France in that game because of recency bias, because of how they look, because of the brand of soccer that they play. But the deeper that you get into these tournaments and the better competition that you face, a lot of times I like taking the teams that can win ugly. I like taking the teams that just know how to grit and grind and find ways to win, right? Rams and Seahawks. Seattle is the best defense in the NFL. And even though that was a high-scoring game, Seattle got the stops when they needed to win. Michigan and Arizona, 2 very good teams, 2 very good defenses with 2 very good front courts. But Michigan, at the end of the day, they ended up winning. I mean, look at the NBA draft. Look at Merez Johnson, Yaxel Landenborg, Adai Mora. All these guys were lottery picks. Michigan ended up winning. And then Spurs and OKC, 2 great defensive teams, but only one team is Victor Wembanyama, who might be the greatest defensive player that we've ever seen. The way he affects games, the way he changes shots. So now here we go with a potential France and Spain matchup. I'll take the team that I trust more with the better defense in Spain, with the better goaltender, and the team that has not given up a goal this entire tournament. Now, again, Belgium could end up winning today, and we could get Belgium and France in the semis, and if that ends up happening, I'm going to like France in that game. But I do think Spain is going to take care of business today. I think they're going to win that game. I think we're going to get Spain and France in the semifinals, and I think Spain is going to win that game. A lot of people are going to like France. I'm going to be on the side of Spain. Now, like I said, this maybe feels a little bit different than those other 3 scenarios I was referring to, because you are going to have a lot of people that like England, and you're certainly going to have a lot of people that like Argentina. And this tournament could have a feel to how the NBA played out, where you have the 2 best teams in the world, Spain and France. You have the 2 teams that were the pre-tournament favorites playing in the other semifinal. And then there's just England and Argentina waiting on the bottom half of that bracket. And England, don't they kind of have a Knicks feel to them? 2 teams that are big brands, have a great following, haven't won in a long time. England won back in '66. And after that game at the Azteca, which is, I mean, that's one of the greatest soccer matches I've ever watched. I'm sure it's one of the greatest soccer matches you've ever watched. England, they have a certain feel to them right now. I'm worried about the Norway game, though, tomorrow. And we're going to get into that matchup and the Argentina matchup coming up later in the show. Joe Malfa going to join us here on the other side of the break. We're going to get his thoughts on all the games upcoming and the rest of the World Cup. But if England's able to survive that game against Norway, they're dangerous. They definitely could end up winning the World Cup. I think Spain is the toughest matchup for France. If I were to want any team to knock out France of this tournament, it is Spain. I don't know if England can beat France. I don't know if Argentina can beat France. They obviously can. I just wouldn't feel good about it. Spain is the team that I would want to knock out France of the tournament. Just like we kind of all were saying, I don't know if the Knicks can beat Oklahoma City, but there's a chance that they could beat the Spurs. I think it's the same kind of feel that I would feel with England. So if you're an England fan, I think you're rooting for Spain today. And then you're rooting for your boys to take care of business against Belgium and advance to the semifinals. But I'm telling you guys, Seahawks, Rams, Michigan, Arizona, Spurs, Oklahoma City, it's got the same feel of how this World Cup, how this semifinal is shaking up with a potential Spain-France matchup. I think a lot of people are going to be on France in that game. I think they're going to find themselves on the wrong side like they have with the other 3 games. I think Spain is going to the final. And if England's waiting on that other side, it might be coming home for the boys out there in the UK. A lot more show to get into today. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports. Joe Malfa does play-by-play for ESPN, NWSL, and MLS. He's going to join us next, talk everything World Cup right here, Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
John Strong on the call there for Fox as France, with a 2-0 win over Morocco, advanced to the semifinals, where they will await the winner of today's Spain and Belgium matchup from Los Angeles. We're going to talk some World Cup with our guy Joe Malfa here in just a second. I've been calling it the day of the W's when you've had Wimbledon and World Cup lining up. The double dip has been fantastic. Wimbledon in the morning, World Cup in the afternoon. We do have 2 semifinals from Wimbledon today. Zverev and Ferry right now tied up at 5 in the 5th set. Sinner and Djokovic to follow. And that will take us into Spain and Belgium coming up later today, 3 p.m. Eastern time, to talk about that game and everything World Cup. Welcome on my good friend Joe Malfa. Give Joe a follow on X at MalfaJ98. Play-by-play for ESPN, MLS, and NWSL as well. This segment is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting small businesses with affordable coverage option. Quote today at progressivecommercial.com. Joe, before we get into yesterday's matchup between France and Morocco, today's games, and tomorrow's games, got to talk to you about the U.S. because you were out in Seattle for that USA-Belgium game. Pre-game, the environment looked incredible. Second half, maybe not so much, as everybody was a little disappointed with the result. But just talk about your experience out there in Seattle, and especially pre-game with everybody amped for that USA-Belgium game.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about as far as the second half goes. I think that game ended in the 3rd minute after the Malik Tillman free kick. I don't think anything at all happened after that ever. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. I've just memory hold the entire rest of that game. But no, it was awesome, man. I mean, just from my perspective, like growing up in the game, around the game, and being a diehard of this sport since 2006, really, with that World Cup showing when they just completely flopped. That's what hooked me. I was 8 years old. Slowly but surely seeing the rest of the country get behind it more and more. Numbers came out, over 50 million watched that game. For me, it was a culmination of 20 years from that 06 World Cup to now being in Seattle, being at that stadium, being there with my dad, just enjoying the fanfare before the game, during the game, and even the conversations after the game, right? Like it's about picking up the pieces. It's about how do we move forward. Like the fact that people are arguing about it means people care now. 20 years ago when they got bounced in the group stage of that World Cup, nobody really cared. So it's awesome to see how far it's come. Even in defeat, like the fact that the ball is rolling and people actually care. The people always say, you want to be loved or hated, right? It's indifference that you don't want. That's fine. If people are going to be complaining about this team and arguing about this team, that's good. As long as they're not indifferent about this team, that's good. But the environment was awesome, and the result was awful. That's I guess how I would put it. And we'll move on from there.
Joe, give me a grade. What would be the grade that you would give the United States men's national team? I was talking to you before the tournament. You said round of 16 they should get to. Quarterfinal would be a dream. We get to the round of 16. They're favored to beat Belgium. Everybody's excited. And obviously, the way that they lost the game is really what I think is killing a lot of people. It's how good they looked for so much of the tournament. And then for it to kind of just be the same old story with a really good European team kind of beating them up. But if you had to give a grade for this USA team after their tournament, what would it be?
Yeah, I'd still give it a B. I mean, what they did in the group stage and the game against Bosnia, it captivated the country. I mean, there's never been that level of hysteria and excitement about this team. It's a bad taste we're left with the Belgian game, but all that goodwill doesn't just get erased. And I mean, there's certain people who are prominent in the media, I won't name names, who all of a sudden got on board after the Bosnia game and then jumped right off board after the Belgium game. Those people don't matter. We don't need them. They're not part of the bandwagon necessarily. The people that we're trying to get in to grow this game in this country, it's the 8 to 14-year-old kid who's now going to be in the backyard taking free kicks like they're Malik Tillman. Those are your formative years watching these World Cups. And regardless of the outcome of the Belgian game, the group stage and the Bosnia win, that hooked all those kids. And that's going to stick with them forever. So in terms of the impact, in terms of the way the team played, I'd give it a B overall, and that last result doesn't bring it down any further for me. When you peel it back a little bit too, it's it's a casual observation versus an in-the-know observation. Belgium didn't really do anything great in that game. They didn't really take it to us in that game. We just completely self-destructed. So the fact that we went into a game like that as favorites, the fact that we didn't really get bludgeoned like we have against teams. Like when we played Belgium in 2014, they outshot us about 1,000,000-1, and Tim Howard just stood on his head. This wasn't that. They did what they had to do. They were casual about it, and we just completely self-destructed. So even the defeat itself came a different way, so I still give it a B.
What do you think is the most important thing for this U.S. roster to make sure they improve on in the next 4 years? Is it retaining Pochettino as coach, upgrade to the defense, to the goalie? Is it trying to develop one of these world-class players? Like, if you probably had to pinpoint one thing that you think they need to improve on or retain, what would be that thing for you?
I think it's a little bit of all the above, but I don't mean that as a cop-out answer. You look at all the teams that have success and deep runs in this tournament. You need a coach who knows what they're doing, whether that's Pochettino or somebody else. I think it could be Pochettino, a name that many people don't necessarily know yet, and we hope, again, to bring you more in the tent and hook you for 4 years and not just come around every fourth year. B.J. Callahan, he was the assistant in the interim when Greg Berhalter took his leave after the last World Cup. Now he's the head coach of Nashville and MLS. He's done some terrific things. He's going to be in the running for that job. I think very highly of him. There's a couple of other names. Pellegrino Matarazzo, somebody who's coaching in Spain right now from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Really good pedigree, won Copa del Rey, which is Spain's national cup last year with Real Sociedad. It was a big upset. That's a tournament that's usually won by the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid. So getting one of those coaches or Pochettino and making sure you have a coach in place, that's of the utmost importance. The biggest thing is really fleshing out the depth. That's what stood out in that Belgium game. They got to turn on the bench and bring on Romelu Lukaku and Jeremy Doku, and they still had Kevin De Bruyne just waiting in the wings. We don't have that level of depth yet. The top-end talent is finally there. No world-class talent, to your point. There's no world-class player. The top-end talent throughout the starting 11's there. We maybe go 13 or 14 deep, but you got to go 18 deep to have a chance in this tournament, and that's what I think people are going to see. There is an outstanding crop coming up, and the whole golden generation thing about Pulisic, Adams, McKennie, all these guys, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. You need to really take a step back. It's a golden generation by our standards, but in 10, 15, 20 years' time, I think we're going to look back on this period as a foundational era and not a golden generation, because what's coming next, as long as these players continue on their trajectories, it dwarfs the team that we have right now. And that's not any disrespect to this team. The guys I mentioned paved the way. It's the foundation. They were the gap bridgers from missing in 2018 to where we are now. So I think this is the foundational generation, and we've got a ton more talent in the pipeline. So I think just fostering it and developing them properly is what's going to stand out the most, more so than a coach or anything else, because players win this tournament. Lionel Scaloni doesn't really do much for Argentina. He just kind of sits back and he lets Messi and crew do their thing. We don't have a Messi, and we probably never will. There'll never be another one. But it's about getting the depth, the talent, and the players, and you just got to have the right pieces in place to develop it.
We're talking World Cup here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM with Joe Malfa. Give Joe a follow on X at MalfaJ98. Play-by-play for ESPN, MLS, and NWSL. Joe, let's talk some quarterfinals. Let's start with the game that we saw yesterday, France and Morocco. France is a perfect 6-0 in this tournament. They've outscored their opponents 16-2. Mbappe's been incredible. Dembele, Olise. I mean, that trio is just ridiculous that they have. They're the big favorite right now to win it all. I think if you polled 100 people, probably 80% of them would tell you that France probably ends up winning it. Are you, if I gave you France or the field right now to win the World Cup, would you take France or would you take the field?
No, you got to take France. It's one of those things where you just don't go away from what your eyes are telling you. Your eyes are telling you they're an absolutely dominant team. They don't have a weakness. The only thing that I think can stymie them is a team who plays a ton of possession ball and really good defensively and maybe takes them to penalties at 0-0 or 1-1. But you just look at this team and you just expect them to score 2 or 3 goals every game. going back to what I just said, though, there is one team that can manage that. There is one team that hasn't conceded a single goal this whole tournament, and that team would be their semifinal opponent in Spain if we get chalked today with Spain beating Belgium. So I think their toughest test actually comes in the semifinal against Spain, and I think anybody who comes over from the other side of the bracket in the final, they bludgeon. And I mean, that includes Argentina, that includes England, whoever they go up against in that final. I think they're taking it in 90 minutes, no trouble. It's really the Spain game that can be their landmine in the semifinal, and that's assuming Spain gets through today.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm with you. I think it is going to be France and Spain in the semifinals. Do you think Spain struggles a little bit today? Would you, if you had to make a wager, would you take them in regulation, extra time? Do you think we see a lot of goals? Is it an under game? Because, as you mentioned, and I mentioned in the first segment, Spain hasn't conceded any goals. So what would be your play if you had to make one in that Spain-Belgium game?
My play today, I parlayed three distinct things that really amount to a specific outcome. I parlayed Spain win in 90, both teams to score no, and under 2.5. So what that insinuates is a 1-0 or 2-0 Spain win in 90 minutes. I forgot what the number came out to. I should have checked that before I came on, and obviously it's changed now because I placed that last night. But that's what I'm looking at, 1 or 2-0 Spain. I think there's maybe a little bit too much hype on Belgium just because of the way the U.S. game went. But they completely changed their style. They sat back. They let us self-destruct, and we obliged. We did it. Spain won't do that. Spain is not going to make the mistakes that we made in that game and give those free goals to Belgium. And I don't think Belgium has a way to score against them. Let's not forget that Belgium was on their way to losing 2-0 against Senegal before Senegal just completely crumbled in the final 5 minutes of that game. It's the Spain team that's going to dictate this whole game. As I mentioned before, they haven't conceded a goal this entire tournament, and I don't think this Belgium team all of a sudden is going to do it to them. So for me, I'm looking at Spain winning in 90 by a 1 or 2-0 scoreline. That's how I would play it.
All right, I like it. Tomorrow we got two more matchups, and Joe, I think a lot of people are expecting Norway and England probably to be the closest played. If you were to bet a draw into any of the quarters, I think most people would like this one the best. It's such a fascinating matchup, right? Because we know the story with England, and it just has the feel of after that all-time win in the Azteca, how England would it be for them to turn around and drop a game like this to a Norway team that's rolling? Holland is playing great. I can't wait for that game tomorrow. I think England is going to find a way, but it's probably going to be brutal in typical England fashion. How do you see that one playing out?
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be in the Miami Heat, and these teams are going to really struggle with that as far as the weather and the humidity. So that maybe leads you to an under, but on the flip side of that, England and Norway have both played pretty much every single game. You look at the list, it's 2-1, it's 3-2. So I'm really not sure how it's going to go scoreline-wise. I would say both teams to score is something I'm looking at, because even if it goes the distance, past 90 minutes to 120, it's probably getting there at 1-1. I cannot imagine a world where this one goes 0-0 through 90 minutes. So I'm picking both teams to score. I like England to advance. If you want to play either side in 90, I would lean England. I think that Norway's run feels like it comes to an end here, but everything is so agonizing for English fans. The one thing on every England fan mind right now is you're going up against Erling Haaland, who plays in the Premier League with Manchester City, and he's going to drive that dagger through your heart and then just parade it around the Premier League all year long, and you're going to have to look at him as a reminder the whole time. So it's the English doubt that the other shoe's going to drop, but then there's also the conventional wisdom. They are the better team. It feels like their biggest hurdle was going on the road to Azteca, battling through that the way they did. It just feels now like what was holding them, almost, PJ, you're going to love this one. It feels like 2018 Capitals finally beating the Penguins. They got through the difficulties of that Congo game coming back late, winning it 2-1. They got through the Azteca, playing down a man. It feels now like there's a level of invincibility to them where I could see them going to the final, but then they run into France, and we know what happens when you run into France. But that means they get through Norway, and if I had to pick something, I'd go 90 minutes England.
Can't wait for that game. And then, Joe, the final quarterfinal matchup that we get is going to be Argentina and Switzerland. Look, we use the term survive and advance a lot in March Madness, but you can definitely use it for Argentina throughout the knockout round. Cabo Verde took them to the brink. They should have lost to Egypt, but they're still alive. They're a big favorite again against Switzerland. We know Switzerland just wants to drag out the game. They want to play for extra time. They want to play for penalties. They want to do the same thing again against Argentina. Do you think Messi and company advance yet again, or is this finally the game where they get tripped up?
Yeah, they're going to advance again. I can't see them getting tripped up. I could see Switzerland pulling them into 120 minutes and dragging them into the deep end, but this team feels very Kansas City Chiefs from 2 years ago. And again, right up until if they go up against France, I think France beats them by 2 goals in the final, similar to how the Chiefs got bludgeoned by the Eagles in that Super Bowl. But that Chiefs team just found a way. You thought they were dead. They found a way. This one very well could be boring, 0-0 through 75 minutes, and then a magical late moment from Argentina to win it 1-0, or it could be 0-0, 1-1 into extras and maybe penalties beyond that. You mentioned earlier that some people thinking maybe Norway, England is the one to play if you want to pick a draw and get that extra juice. I think it's the Argentina-Switzerland game. If you're somebody who's of that mindset where you want to you're itching to pick a tie in some game here, I think it's the Argentina-Switzerland game, because Switzerland just has that ability to make the game so dull, so boring, suck the life completely out of it, where it's going to take either a complete mental error from Switzerland or a moment of brilliance that we know Argentina is capable of, but this is something that just screams 0-0 into the now proverbial fourth quarter after that second half hydration break.
We're talking World Cup here with Joe Malfa and You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM, Westwood One Sports. Joe, a couple more for you. What do you think would be the bigger storyline of this World Cup, of a team hoisting the trophy? Messi winning back-to-back and getting another, England finally breaking through, Mbappe winning his second and putting himself amongst the conversation of the all-time greats. In your eyes, what do you think would be the biggest potential storyline from this World Cup?
Can I just say yes? We've gotten to that point where it feels like every possible winner has that type of great storyline. With no offense to Spain, they're almost the most boring one, and even for them it'd be a second star, and it would be Lamine Yamal, who's burgeoning through as a teenage winner like Pele was 5 decades ago. Or it's England, like you said, winning it for the first time since 1966, and the hysteria that would come with that. Or it's France and Mbappe, who 3 finals in 3 straight tournaments and 2 trophy lifts. And even if you take that a step further, they were in the final in 2006, and they won it in 1998. So really, you're talking about a 28-year stretch where they're in 5+ finals, and they've won multiple of those. So there's all that, and there's Messi winning a second one and going out fully on top and putting to bed any debate that shouldn't already exist anyway, but putting any other possible debates to bed. Take your pick. I mean, with no offense to some of the other teams that fall to the background, if you get any of those top 4 seeded teams who win, there is an epic storyline that goes with it. And if you want, you go further. If Norway comes through as a dark horse with Holland and is sort of the first ever outsider to win a World Cup, that's an awesome story. I think we're in a point right now where everybody who's in it and can win it has an outstanding story, except Belgium and Switzerland. You two are boring, and I hope you both lose this weekend.
Very good. Joe, last one for me. You mentioned that you do like France to win it all. I kind of was comparing maybe how this World Cup is going a little bit to the NBA playoffs, where France and Spain could be your OKC, San Antonio. And then if France gets upset like Oklahoma City did, that could work out for England or potentially Argentina, right? Where if France matched up against both of those teams, I would like France. If Spain were to play England or Argentina, I think you could make a real case. So if you couldn't have France and say Spain pulled off the small upset, would you still like Spain to win it all, or would you potentially take England or Argentina?
No, that's a great shout. If Spain is able to upset France, then I'm going to the other side of the bracket. And from a betting perspective, the different ways to play that, where you kind of cover yourself either way. The other day I saw that there's certain books offering lines on to be eliminated in a penalty shootout. I don't think any team can beat Spain or beat France in 90 or 120. So France was plus 400 in that. So if you think that France might not win it all, sprinkle something on that to lose at a penalty shootout, be it in the semis or in the final. If you think that Spain is the best team to beat France, go ahead and put a money line bet on Spain to advance past France, and go ahead and put a money line on, or a bet on France to win the title. One of those two things, because if France gets through, they're winning it all. Otherwise, you're getting it right there with Spain beating France. So that's the way I would look into that, just depending on the books and the numbers and how you hedge things. But it's a great shout. I think France's toughest test is in the semifinal against Spain. If Belgium does France a favor today and upset Spain, then forget it. They're going to waltz through. They're going to lift this thing. It feels very much like Baylor in 2021 in March Madness, where They were just a team that was not going to be beaten, and at the end, they were a team that did not get beaten and never looked close in that tournament. That's what this France team feels like. It's just a complete buzzsaw. It might go down as the greatest World Cup team of all time if they continue the way they're going and they don't trip up.
I mean, Joe knows his soccer, but he's giving you 2021 Baylor. He's giving you the Chiefs. He's giving you the Caps. The man knows his sports. Give him a follow on X at MalfaJ98, play-by-play for ESPN, MLS, and NWSL. Joe, always good talking to you, buddy. Thanks for the time, and enjoy the rest of the World Cup. We'll catch up again soon.
You too, man. Enjoy.
There he goes, Joe Malfa, here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. We're going to take a quick time out here on Westwood One Sports. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Major League Baseball. We got Home Run Derby on Monday, All-Star Game on Tuesday. We're approaching All-Star Weekend. We'll break it down next here, Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Today is going to be the day. Oh, what a great song. Wonderwall, of course. England making it famous again here in the World Cup as they are 3 wins away from winning their second World Cup. And you can get an early payout for a 2-goal lead. Place a pregame bet on any World's game match. If your team takes a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours regardless of the outcome of the game. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. We will talk more World Cup coming out throughout the show. Talk about today's Spain-Belgium game, how I would play it. Also talk about the 2 games coming up tomorrow. How about the 2 number 1 overall picks in the NBA draft squared off last night? AJ DeBance, Darren Peterson. We'll talk about that to kick off our number 2. And then we'll get into some football conversation later on in the show. NFL. And then how about some college football, folks? Less than 2 months away. I've been in the lab doing some research. I got my 12 teams that I think are going to make the college football playoff, including a team that you can bet at 25-1 to make the playoff. We'll get into that coming up in about 30 minutes. Let's talk some baseball, though. We got the MLB All-Star Weekend coming up on Monday. We got the Home Run Derby from Citizens Bank Park, and then we have the All-Star Game on Tuesday. Right now, we have 6 of the 8 finalists for the Home Run Derby that have been finalized. Junior Caminero from the Tampa Bay Rays, Ben Rice from the Yankees, Jack Caglione from the Royals, Wilson Contreras from the Red Sox, Jordan Walker from the Cardinals, Bryce Harper, who won the Home Run Derby when he was a member of the Nationals at Nats Park, is going to participate again as a Philly at Citizens Bank Park. And then we have 2 more finalists that have yet to be announced. I would probably think Schwarber's going to end up doing it, right? I mean, he's leading Major League Baseball with 32 home runs this season. He's a member of the Phillies. I mean, you would think Schwarber would probably do it. So I'm going to pencil him in at the moment for number 7. And then the last one, the 8th guy, super interesting. I kind of want to see it be Hunter Goodman from the Colorado Rockies. Their catcher this season has 27 home runs, and it's the Rockies. You know, I mean, put him on national TV. Let the casual sports fan know that the Rockies are actually doing something good for the first time in like 10, 15 years. They got a stud catcher. Let him compete. Put him on the national stage. So I think Goodman should ended up doing it. Kenny in the chat was throwing out Mike Trout. He's just coming back from the disabled list. He's from Philadelphia. He's never done it before. I mean, that would be kind of cool, but at the same time, like, it'd be the most Mike Trout thing ever for him to get hurt doing that. And I just, Trout's my favorite baseball player ever. I don't want to see him fail on this stage going back home. So I'm thinking it's going to be Schwarber. I'm hoping it's Hunter Goodman. I could see a guy like PCA doing it. Colson Montgomery, the White Sox are having a heck of a season. Maybe him. I want to see one of the surprise teams this year in baseball get featured on the national stage. Give me Hunter Goodman. Give me Colson Montgomery. Give me one of these young studs that's absolutely balling in the first half of the season for one of these teams. That's who I'd like to see, assuming that Schwarber is the 7th guy. So because we don't have the other 2, obviously no odds are out yet. If Schwarber does end up doing it, he's going to be the favorite. I kind of think Bryce Harper could be intriguing, to be honest, in the Home Run Derby. As I mentioned, he won it as a member of the Nats when it was played at Nationals Park. And now he's a member of the Phillies doing the Home Run Derby at Citizens Bank Park. Kind of think that's a cool little storyline potentially. So I like Bryce Harper. Jack Caglione is just, every year we get just one of these freaks that ends up doing the Home Run Derby. Just one of these athletic Greek gods made in a lab that does the James Wood was that guy last year. Jack Caglione is that guy this year. Now, Jordan Walker in his own right isn't a small dude either. I'm interested to see how he performs. But Caglione, he's interesting to me. And that dude hits bombs, like 470, 480. He's going to be great TV. So I kind of like Cags a little bit. Caminero is going to be a very popular pick. He's done it before. He's on an insane heater right now with Tampa. He also could be a guy to watch. Ben Rice, Wilson Contreras, they're both having really good seasons. Rice has really cooled off since Judge has gotten hurt. Contreras, I don't really love, as a catcher. Just I worry about him the later that he goes. I kind of think he's going to get more tired. So I'm kind of throwing him and Rice. Of the 6 guys that have been announced, Harper and Caglione are probably the 2 guys I would say that interest me the most in the home run derby. I'm thinking we could get some pretty decent odds on Bryce, especially depending if Schwarber ends up doing it. Maybe we get another favorite, another guy that's hitting 25 plus homers this year. Get some pretty good numbers on Harper. And as we know, it's a bracket with the home run derby. It goes by how many home runs a player hit in the first half of the season. So depending on how the bracket shapes out and where Bryce is, I mean, you could get a really good price. And the fact that he's done this before, he's won it, and he's going to want to put on a show for the fans, I think Bryce Harper might be the guy that I'm rolling with. But I'm definitely going to be looking at some Caglione props, like farthest home run, him in the first round. He is just going to go all out in that first round, and I could see him maybe tiring himself out if he potentially makes it to the semis or the finals. But those are the 2 guys that I'm definitely interested in the home run derby. Excited to see who the final 2 participants are, but I would think it's going to be Schwarber. And then I'm hoping for Hunter Goodman from the Rockies. If not, Colson Montgomery, I think would be a good pick from the Chicago White Sox as well. We'll talk some more baseball later on in the show, dive into which teams I think could make a run in the second half of the season. But when we come back to kick off hour number 2, talk some NBA Summer League. AJ Debinca, Darren Peterson, top 2 picks squared off last night. How did they look, and how do I think their NBA careers are going to unfold? We'll get into that. PJ Glasser here, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Hour 2, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports. Make it legendary. PJ Glasser here with you, filling in for Nick Kostos on this Friday. You guys can listen to the show on SiriusXM channel 375. Also can listen on the Westwood One app. If you want to watch the show, you can do so on YouTube, youtube.com/@the Kostos. So plenty of ways to watch and listen to the show. Great first hour, talking some World Cup, catching up with Joe Malfa, and previewing the Home Run Derby as well. We have 6 of the 8 participants that are named for the Derby on Monday. Excited to find out who the final 2 are. But Bryce Harper, Jack Caglione, 2 guys that definitely pique my interest for the Derby out in Philly. Right now, we have Wimbledon men's semifinal going on at center court. The first of 2 semis today. The second one, Sinner and Djokovic. That one is going to be epic. This might be Novak's best chance to win another major with Alcaraz out and Sinner. He's got to play today. It's going to be an uphill battle. It looks like Zverev is going to win and advance to the final. He won the French Open and now could be headed to the Wimbledon final. He's going up against Arthur Ferry today, who is 500-1 to win Wimbledon. And here he is in the semis, but it looks like the magical run for Arthur Ferry might be coming to a close. Zverev won the first set, and he's currently up 5-1 in the second set. Also got the Genesis Scottish Open going on right now out in North Berwick, Scotland. I love this time of the year for golf. I'm a big golf guy, just like our guy Tyler Morales. And this is the only time of year, especially next week. Next week is the only time of the year I willingly wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, so I can watch my golfers tee off. Then I got to take a solid nap during the day. But love this time of year for golf. 2 events that we get when all the big names head to Europe and play on these links golf courses. But right now, Jordan Smith is your leader at the Genesis Scottish Open at 9 under par. But we got the final major in the golf schedule coming up next week that I'm sure will be previewed plenty here on You Better You Bet. Let's talk some NBA, though. Get into some NBA Summer League. Last night, we had the number 1 overall pick, AJ DeBansa, square off against the number 2 overall pick in Darren Peterson. We also had the number 5 overall pick in Keatlin Wagler square off against the number 7 overall pick, Darius Acuff. Tonight, we have Cam Boozer, the 3rd overall pick in the Grizzlies, take on Caleb Wilson of the Bulls, the number 4 overall pick. So I do got to give Summer League credit. They know what the people want. Opening night, let's see all the best players just play each other. Let's see 1 versus 2. Let's see 5 versus 7. Let's see 3 versus 4. They know what they're doing. I like the schedule. And last night, that Wizards Jazz game, very entertaining. AJ DeBansa, 27 points for the Wizards. Darren Peterson had 24. Going into the college basketball season, a lot of people thought Darren Peterson would be the number 1 overall pick. There were coaches that Kansas played against this past season that said he was the closest thing they had seen to Kobe. And that's not a comparison that a lot of coaches just throw around, but there were multiple people that said that, including Doug Gottlieb, who's the head coach at University of Green Bay. This kid's special. He's a great scorer. He's got every tool in the bag. He can score around the rim, 3-point range, mid-range. He did struggle a little bit in the first half, but a sign of a good scorer is that it didn't really feel like he did all that much, and he still had 24 points for the Utah Jazz last night. What rubbed a lot of people the wrong way about Darren Peterson was just how his season went at Kansas. The constant just unknowing of if he was going to play from night to night. Was he going to sit out? Was he going to be a healthy scratch? Were you going to get 3 consistent games out of him? When he did play, were you going to get max effort, or were you constantly worried that he didn't want to re-injure themselves? All these questions, all these distractions. And last night he was being interviewed after his first Vegas Summer League game, and I thought his soundbite was very interesting on a little bit of his time at Kansas and also what he experienced last night in the Summer League. Listen to this.
Good. I'm back having fun. I wasn't really experiencing that as much at Kansas. I was off at the time, so just to feel like myself again. Being on the ball, that's what comes with it, being double team and different coverages. So keep adjusting.
He said at Kansas he didn't quite feel like himself, and he wasn't on the ball enough at Kansas. Like, Darren, you were going to be the number 1 overall pick, brother. You got a Hall of Fame head coach in Bill Self. If you wanted to handle the ball more, maybe you should let him know. Kansas didn't exactly have a starting point guard last year. It was you and Malik Newman. Those were the 2 guards that he had handling the ball. And he said he's starting to feel like himself again. He didn't feel like that at Kansas. To me, that is a crazy quote. And the fact that he didn't feel like he was on the ball much either, I think is pretty insane as well from Darren Peterson. But again, this is why a lot of people were scared of him as a prospect, because his time at Kansas just didn't go as a lot of people expected. He said he's back to having fun, and he didn't experience that at Kansas. He said he was off the ball a ton. Now he's handling it again. And that's what it comes with, being double teamed, playmaking, finding your teammates. I think that's crazy that he would say that, because we all wanted to hear from Darren during the season. We all wanted to know, like, how much is he really being bothered by these injuries? Where is his mind at? Obviously, Kansas was never going to put him in that situation. I just think it's very interesting to hear him talk now about a little bit, again, about his experience, how he wasn't necessarily having fun. He is now. But the early return on Darren Peterson from these couple games, we watched him in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah. He played a couple of games there. And then last night, again, the question has never been ability. It's never been talent. If he stays healthy, I mean, Darren Peterson could lead the NBA in scoring at some point, and not in the not so distant future either. He is that good of a scorer. AJ DeBansa, on the other hand, this is why the Wizards drafted him 1 over Peterson. It's because of the uncertainty, the unknowing. It's because, again, of quotes like that from Peterson. And let's be honest, the Wizards, they couldn't take a chance on a guy like that. Even if Peterson ends up being the better player. The Wizards have been I'm a Wizards fan, by the way. So full transparency with the audience. I'm a Wizards fan. Been watching this team my whole life. They suck, you guys. They're terrible. They do nothing well. But they're finally starting to do some things well. They've never won 50 games in their franchise history. They've never made it to an Eastern Conference final in their franchise history. There is no way they could take a chance on a guy like Darren Peterson. If they would have been the Dallas Mavericks who just gotten Cooper Flagg, and maybe you can take a chance on a guy, sure, they could get Peterson. If Oklahoma City would have won the lottery, they could afford to take a chance. Like those teams that are in those type of situations, sure, maybe you can go for the guy who has definitely more risk, but also could end up being the better player. The Wizards had to go with the safer bet. They had to go with the more consistent guy. And watching AJ DeBansa last night, you can see that that's what he is. 6'9", and when he's out there on the floor, he just looks like it's almost like a man playing against children. He just towers over everybody. And I'll never compare somebody to Kevin Durant at this stage in his career. I mean, you're talking about one of the all-time players and one of the all-time great scorers. But in terms of just like size, length, ability to handle the basketball, run the offense, like it truly did feel like watching a Kevin Durant, somebody at that size, move the way that he does, can get his shot whenever he wants. Again, the bag, the dribble, the handle, all those sorts of things, man. Now, his jump shot is a little bit flat. He's got to improve on that, and I'm sure the Wizards will work on that, especially from three-point range. We know when you go from college to the NBA, that line moves back. He's got to work on the three-point shot. But that in-between game, that mid-range game, The Wizards have never had somebody like that. I mean, it's crazy to watch. And what I love too is that all of like the 9-10 best Wizards players that aren't playing in Summer League, all the guys that are going to be starters or all the guys that are going to be on the rotation, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Keyshawn George, Bilal Coulibaly, all these guys, they were all there last night. I love that. I love that they're there. They're supporting DeBanza. They're supporting Trey Johnson. They're supporting Will Riley. And that Eastern Conference is very interesting. The Knicks are the favorite, and rightfully so. They just won the championship. They're running it back. They're going to have that starting five: Brunson, Hart, Towns, OG. They're going to be difficult to deal with. I mean, that's the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. Boston just lost Jaylen Brown. They're not going to be as good, but Philly is going to be better by picking up Brown. And if they're able to pick up LeBron James, they could be really good and maybe have the best starting five in the NBA. But this Eastern Conference is wild, man. Like, are the Cavs going to get LeBron? If they don't, what do they look like? Detroit has gotten better the last 2 years. They were the 1 seed last year. What is that going to look like? Indiana's got Halliburton coming back. The Hawks were kind of the Pistons of 2 years ago. And maybe the Hawks take that next step and get a top 3 seed for this upcoming season. Miami just got Giannis. The Raptors, we're waiting to see what's happening with Kawhi. And then we got the news yesterday that trade is on halt because of the investigation going on with the Clippers. East is wide open, man. It is wide open after the Knicks. Like, those teams competing for the 2, 3, 4 spot, super interesting. And what I also think is very interesting is that really all of these top draft picks that we have, for the most part, are in the Western Conference. Peterson is in the Western Conference. Cam Boozer, who plays tonight, who's your favorite to win Rookie of the Year, he's in the Western Conference. Darius Acuff on Sacramento, Keaton Wagler, they faced off last night. They're in the Western Conference. So you got Caleb Wilson on the Bulls, who's in the East. You got Michael Brown, who's in the East. But, you know, if AJ DeBanza turns out to be, and the number 1 picks have been really good in the NBA draft the last few years, if he turns out to be really good, Wizards should be a playoff team. They got to stay healthy. That's obviously a massive key too. When you have Anthony Davis, Trae Young on your roster, health is always going to be a big question mark. But if they stay healthy, they should have a pretty good team. And as a Wizards fan, I was very pleased out of what I saw at DeBanza. Much like Peterson, just an easy 27 points last night. So tough to deal with around the rim. Can get his shot whenever he wants in the mid-range. And if he ever develops that 3-point jump shot and makes it consistent, you can't guard him. Can't stop him, not at that size. So I think both teams, the Wizards and the Jazz, have to feel good about what they did. The Wizards, they couldn't afford to go after Peterson. They had to take the sure thing with DeBanza. They did that. It's one game. You don't want to overreact too much. But looking at Wizards Twitter, man, all the fans are so happy. And it's just like, we've never had a guy like that at 6'9". We've never had like a Durant. We've never had a Giannis. We've never had a LeBron. Like, we don't know what it's like to have a guy at that size that's that talented, that just completely changes your team and completely changes the game when he's on the floor. So that's really interesting. Utah's got a very good up and young coming team. If Peterson stays healthy, I mean, he just gets buckets. Like, he's going to be really, really good. So I think both teams have to feel very good about the situation that they're in. The other matchup that we saw last night, Darius Acuff and Keaton Wagler. Again, a lot was talked about. Those picks, 5, 6, 7. You had Wagler go 5 to the Clippers, Michael Brown goes 6 to the Nets, and Darius Acuff goes 7 to Sacramento. All 3 of those guys are point guards. If I was the Clippers, I would have gone with Darius Acuff, and it really wouldn't have even been close. Last night, he had 19 points. He was the second leading scorer on the Kings. Keaton Wagler had 7 points for the Clippers last night. He was 1 for 7 from the field. Again, you don't want to overreact to one game of Summer League. I haven't been as high on Wagler as a lot of other people are, and certainly as some of these other teams were. He's a really good player. But Wagler's game kind of mirrors one of a Luka Doncic or like a Paul Pierce, where he's not really quick, but he can get to the paint at will. He's so good at using his body to create space, and he's a very good shooter. He has mastered that step back game, kind of using the elbow a little bit, using his body, shrug off the defender, create that space, and hit the step back 3-pointer. Wagler's great at that. But again, Luka Paul Pierce, these guys are big. They got muscle on them, man. They're tough to deal with. Wagler, he's a skinny dude, and he's still young. I mean, he was a freshman when he got drafted, so he's still a baby. But in terms of like rookie of the year or anything like that, I would not take Wagler. I think you got to give him a couple of years to develop first, let him grow into his body, build some muscle, because once he does, again, then his game is going to translate a lot better to the NBA. When you're in college, man, yeah, you can do that when you're going up against those teams. When you're in the NBA and you're going up against professionals and grown men, going to be a little bit tougher to deal with. So Keaton Wagler, don't love him as much for rookie of the year. Acuff, I certainly think could be a good bet. The Kings are going to be terrible. They're going to give him the keys to the car. He's a terrific offensive player, and he should light up the stat sheet every night. So Acuff, I think, is a good look. And AJ and Darren, I think, are going to be right there too. Both guys stay healthy. If both play a decent amount of games, it's going to be a terrific run for Rookie of the Year. And the favorite is Cam Boozer, who we have playing tonight for the Memphis Grizzlies, who, much like Acuff in Sacramento, that's a team very much in a rebuild. They're hoping to build around him. So he is your favorite right now at BetMGM, and interested to see how he looks tonight, and Caleb Wilson for the Chicago Bulls. But after night one, impressed with AJ, impressed with Darren, and Darius Acuff all looked really good for their three respective teams. All right, we come back. Let's talk some football, college football. Who's going to make the playoff? Isn't that the question we always ask when college football rolls around? Who's in? Who are going to be the 12 teams that make the playoffs? I'll let you know on the other side of the break. PJ Glasser, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports. PJ Glasser with you. Something I do want to note, I just saw a crazy thing on Twitter before we talk some college football and I give out my 12 teams to make the playoff. Scotty Scheffler is going to miss the cut at the Genesis Scottish Open. And the last time he missed the cut, Sinner and Alcaraz had a combined 0 Grand Slams. As we know, they are far and away the two best players in men's tennis. We got the Wimbledon semis going on right now. Sinner's going to play Djokovic coming up. So the last time Scheffler missed the cut, both of those guys had 0 Grand Slams. They now currently have 11. And that's the last time that Scotty missed the cut. So pretty crazy stuff that he's not playing the weekend at the Genesis Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club, but he will tee it up next week at the Open Championship where he is the defending champion. Let's talk some college football. Got less than 2 months until the season begins. Week 1 kicks off September 5th. But I figured I'd talk it now, right? Because while the World Cup is still going on, Open Championship, Wimbledon, MLB All-Star Game, not a lot of people are still quite diving into it just yet. Most people end of July, early August, that's when they'll really start talking college football. I figured I'd get out in front of the masses. I've been diving in last couple weeks and maybe get ahead of some of these prices and talk about some of these teams before other people come around and have the same thought. So we'll run through my top 12 teams and the 12 teams I think are going to make the college football playoff. Let's start. The number 1 team, I believe, in college football this upcoming year, after missing the college football playoff last year, will be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, which shouldn't be much of a surprise because they are minus 700 at BetMGM to make the playoff. Their schedule is extremely easy. The only 2 games that give you any cause for concern are at BYU and home against Miami. Those are the only 2 games where you look at and you're like, okay, Provo's a tough place to play. At that point, Notre Dame really wouldn't have played anybody. Big step up in competition. BYU is one of the favorites in the Big 12. That could be tough. And then Miami, runner-up in the national title game last year, beat Notre Dame last year in week 1. And now, they got one of the best offenses in the country. That could be a tricky game. What I think benefits Notre Dame, though, is last year their schedule was very similar. They really only had 2 games that made you worry, and the rest of their schedule was absolute cake. Those 2 games were Miami and Texas A&M to begin the year. The key is that they were in the beginning of the year. As we know, there is no preseason in college football. So you really got to rely on coaching and how ready these kids are going to be to start the season. Well, Notre Dame lost a tough game at Miami week 1. You lose by a field goal, fine. But then you have a bye week. You come back home and you lose to A&M in the final seconds of the game. And that was the tough one. And then they ran the table the rest of the year. They played BYU at the end of October, and then they get Miami in November. So by then, they'll play enough games where I think they'll be okay. The disappointment of not making the playoff last year will motivate them this entire year. They got CJ Carr, the quarterback, coming back. They might have the best offensive line in the country, maybe the best defense in the country. They got a terrific head coach in Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame, my number 1 team in college football. The 2 seed, I think, is going to be the Oregon Ducks. I think they're going to win the Big Ten this year under Dan Lanning. My concern for Oregon is they have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. And we've seen with Dabo Swinney at Clemson how difficult that can be to replicate. The all-time greats like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, these guys can lose coaches and they don't miss a beat. But just about everybody else, when you have a lot of success, people want to get a piece of that success, and you're just not the same after that. And for years, Dabo had Tony Elliott as his offensive coordinator and Brett Venables as his defensive coordinator. Well, Brett Venables in Oklahoma just made the college football playoff last year. Virginia just made it to the ACC title game last year. I'd say he's had a hard time replacing those guys. Oregon, with Will Stein, Tosh Lapoy, I mean, those have been Dan Lanning's guys. That's been his OC in DC for the last number of years. Now he's got to replace them. That is my concern. But the schedule isn't overly difficult. They do have a road trip to Ohio State and a road trip to USC, and they're home against Michigan. They can honestly lose that USC and Ohio State game, and I still think they'll be okay at 10-2. I think they're going to beat Michigan at home, and I think they got the best quarterback in the country in Dante Moore. The quarterbacks that we have this year in college football are terrific. A lot of returning guys, a lot of guys that could be really good NFL quarterbacks. Dante Moore, for my money, is the best one. If I'm an NFL team, that's my number one pick in the draft. Unless you have a quarterback, and then maybe I consider Jeremiah Smith or somebody else. But if you need a quarterback and you're drafting number one in this upcoming year, Dante Moore would be my guy. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I think Oregon gets to Indianapolis. I think they win the Big Ten championship. The team that I think they're going to beat in the Big Ten championship is going to be Indiana. Indiana's minus 300 to make it to the college football playoff. And per usual with Indiana, the schedule favorable in the non-conference. They don't play anybody. Big Ten schedule, however, a little bit trickier. Ohio State at home, USC at home, at Nebraska, at Michigan, and at Washington. So they got some tricky games. But look, Cignetti has done arguably the greatest job that I have seen any coach do ever in 2 years. He took Indiana football from absolute nothing to going undefeated and winning a national championship in year 2 in football. I mean, that is insane what he has done. Now, he has lost a lot of talent. He loses his Heisman Trophy winner and number one pick in Fernando Mendoza, loses guys on both lines of scrimmage. But they're really good at receiver. They're going to be good again on lines of scrimmage. Their defense is going to be great. And Josh Hoover comes over from TCU, who was one of my favorite quarterbacks in college football. And Josh Hoover's biggest problem when he was with Sonny Dykes at TCU was that he could not take care of the football. Well, if you can't take care of the football as a quarterback, what is probably the best destination for you to go? I would say Bloomington, Indiana, and learn under Kirk Cignetti, where they never turn the ball over, and they always win the turnover battle. So you have this uber-talented quarterback that can throw the ball all over the yard, make plays left and right, but he turns the ball over. Now he gets that coaching from Cignetti where he's going to rein in those turnovers, and I think Hoover's going to be great. I think Indiana gets back to the Big Ten championship, but this time I think they lose to Oregon. I'll have Indiana at number 3. Number 4, and the SEC champion for me, is going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart in Georgia, no stranger to this game in Atlanta. They're normally playing in it every year, and I think once again they're back, and I think this year they win it. Gunnar Stockton is their quarterback. He returns yet again. Georgia, more than any of these big teams, has retained a lot of their talent, a lot of homegrown guys. It's kind of old school where these guys go to a place like Georgia. They don't play as freshmen. They don't play as sophomores. They develop. They hone their craft. And then when they're upperclassmen, they turn into these first-round picks, top 10 picks. That's what Georgia's going to be this year. Now, they do lose a ton in the receiving room. They lose a ton of playmakers, but it's Georgia. I think they'll be fine. Stockton's back at quarterback. Their defense is going to be one of the best as it always is. Their offensive line is going to be very good. And Georgia's schedule the last 2 years has been brutal. This year, it's probably about as favorable as it's been for Georgia in a while. No Texas, no Oklahoma, no A&M, no Tennessee. And usually every year they play like a really difficult non-conference game, right? They played Clemson the last couple years. They played Oregon, like they always challenge themselves. They don't do that this year. So not only do you not have a difficult non-conference game, you miss a lot of the good teams in the SEC. You do have Bama at home, and you have you have Bama and Ole Miss both on the road. And we know Kirby struggles against Alabama, especially in the regular season. He's never beaten them in the regular season. That'll be a tough game. And on the road at Ole Miss will be a tough game as well. But even if they lose both of those, I still think they'll be fine. I think Georgia's floor is 10 wins this season. I think they get to Atlanta, and I think they win the SEC championship. Number 5, I think Texas is going to be the number 5 team in the country. I think Georgia and Texas, who played in the SEC championship a couple of years ago, I think we get that rematch in Atlanta once again. Texas is so interesting this year. Last year, I mean, they were the favorite. They were the preseason team, the favorite to win it all. Arch Manning was the favorite to win the Heisman. Both sides of the ball on paper, they look loaded, offense and defense. Last year was supposed to be Texas's year, and a lot of people felt that way. This year, now all of a sudden, I feel like a lot of people think that Texas and Arch Manning are going to be this year what they were last year. So that worries me a little bit. When a team like Texas, everybody has the same prevailing thought on that team, always makes me a little bit nervous backing a team like the Longhorns. But I do think Arch is going to be good. Their schedule is also not easy. Home against Ohio State, home against Florida, home against Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at LSU, at A&M, and then they play Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. As we know, they went 9-3 last year and they missed out on the playoff. If they lose that early game to Ohio State, and I think they're going to win, but if they lose, again, they really only could probably afford to lose one more game in SEC play, and they could be cooked. But I think Texas this year, I think they're going to make the playoff, and I think they're going to be number 5. Miami going to be number 6 for me. ACC, once again, going to be nowhere near the Big Ten or the SEC in terms of talent. Miami is absolutely far and away, head and shoulders, the most talented team in this league. The two concerns for Miami are they lost a lot. They lost guys on the defensive line, offensive line. Their defense was really good last year, way improved. Can they be that good again? And the fact that it's Mario Cristobal. And if you know anything about college football and you know anything about Mario, he is the king of losing games that he is not supposed to win. So, if you go through a team's schedule and you look at all these teams, oh, they should win that game. They should win that game. That's probably a loss. That's probably a loss. Miami every year, or really Mario every year, going back to his Oregon days, he always loses a game, if not 2, that he shouldn't lose. So you always got to be aware of that. Then on top of that, they're at Notre Dame and they're at Clemson. So they do have 2 tricky road games. If they were to lose both of those and then trip up on one of those landmines in a game that they shouldn't lose, they could be in trouble. Fortunately for them, Notre Dame's not in the ACC, so that game will not count against their conference record. And that's what I'm banking on, is Miami to get to Charlotte and win the ACC championship. And if they do that, I think they're going to the playoff. They're minus 300 right now at BetMGM to make the playoff. Their offense is going to be as good as anybody's in the country. Talked about earlier in the show, that trio on France, Mbappe, Dembele, Olise. That's what Miami is this year. Darian Mensah, their quarterback, comes over from Duke. He's a stud. Mark Fletcher, their running back, stud. Kadarius Toney, their wide receiver, stud. I think that's the best trio in college football. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver. No, a lot of people probably say Ohio State. I'll take Miami. I think their offense, silly good. Number 7, Alabama. Alabama's plus 155 to make the college football playoff. Initially, when I was looking at the Tide, and as many of you know, I went to Alabama. This is my team. I initially thought Alabama was going to go 9-3 and miss the playoff. But handicapping the rest of the SEC and actually diving deeper into their schedule, I think they're going to make the playoff this year. I don't think they're going to make the SEC championship game, but I think they're going to make the playoff. I think they're going to be the 7 seed. It really comes down to quarterback for them, and it comes down to offensive line. All of the 6 previous teams that I've mentioned on this list, Notre Dame, Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, Texas, Miami, we've all seen their quarterbacks play in college. We all know what they're capable of. Bama's like one of the few top teams this year. We have an uncertainty at quarterback. I think it's going to be Keelan Russell, who's their star redshirt freshman, who reminds me a little bit of Bryce Young. Or it could be Austin Mack, who came in the Rose Bowl against Indiana when they were getting just absolutely shellacked and Ty Simpson got hurt. It's going to be one of those 2 guys. I think DeBoer goes with the more upside guy. But fortunately for Keelan Russell, they're stacked at running back and receiver. Their defense is going to be awesome. I think they might have the best secondary in the country. And their schedule is not as tough as it's been in years past. They play Auburn at home, which is always the key. When the Iron Bowl's at Jordan-Hare, it's terrifying. When it's at home, much easier, Brian Denny. Georgia's at home, and as I mentioned, Kirby's never beaten Alabama in the regular season. They get Florida State at home after the Seminoles pulled that big upset last year. They get FSU at home this year, and then they get A&M. And my big take on A&M is I think they are this year's Clemson from last year. I think Marcel Reed is Cade Klubnik. You're going to hear a lot of people hype up this A&M team. Oh, Marcel Reed's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Oh, Mike Elko always gets the most out of his team. Oh, they're going to be really, really good. I don't think Marcel Reed's very good. And their schedule is way tougher this year. You saw what happened when A&M had to play up in competition and how he looked and how they looked. So I think Bama probably wins all their home games this year. You're at LSU, at Tennessee, at Vandy, at Mississippi State. All those games could be tricky. DeBoer, throughout his career, has always been a coach that, like Cristobal, has dropped some games that he shouldn't. That worries you. Ultimately, I think Bama gets to the playoffs. They're my number 7. I feel really good about my top 12 teams. This is the one where I go back and forth. Who to win the Big 12? It's between Texas Tech or BYU for me. We all know the story with Sorsby and Texas Tech, and now they're going to have to go with Will Hammond, their backup quarterback. But Texas Tech's just pumped so much money into that roster, just like they did last year. And even though they lose all that talent on the defensive line, they brought more studs onto that side of the ball. Their running back, Eakin, comes back. Their wide receiver comes back. Their offensive line is going to be really good. And their schedule is so easy, you guys. They don't play anybody in the non-conference. They avoid BYU. They avoid Utah. They really should win the Big 12. But I'm going to go with BYU instead at plus 350. Kalani Sitake, this is his 11th season in Provo. I think this is the best team he's had. I like their quarterback, Bear Bachmeier. I like their running back, LJ Martin. They're always going to be able to run the football. They're always going to play solid defense. And BYU is one of these teams that just always find ways to win games. It's never easy. They never blow out a lot of teams, but they just find ways to win games. Now, obviously, they couldn't beat Texas Tech last year. They beat everybody else but them, and they got smoked by them twice. I think we're going to get another rematch in Arlington, Texas for the Big 12 title game, and I think BYU gets their revenge. So as of now, I like BYU, but I could come around to Texas Tech. All right, this is where we have some fun when we get to 9 and 10. A couple of teams out of the Big 10 that got some nice prices next to their name. The first one, let's go with Penn State at number 9, plus 450. James Franklin is gone, as we know, of Penn State. And I just feel like they're kind of a sleeping giant this season. Matt Campbell takes over, comes over from Iowa State, where it was just time for him to move on. He got the absolute most out of that program that he possibly could. Well, now he takes over at Penn State. He brings his quarterback with him in Rocco Becht, who I really like. Matt Campbell's team always can run the ball. They always play solid defense. I think his type of brand of ball is going to fit in perfectly to what Penn State is and what Big Ten football is. I love the fact that he got DeAnton Lynn, the defensive coordinator, to come coach his defense. This guy worked miracles at USC. You know anything at college football? I could have coached a team that scored 30 points a game against Alex Grinch's defenses. DeAnton Lynn took over, and all of a sudden USC had a real defense. Now he comes to Penn State. I think that's a great hire. And their schedule, folks, easy. They don't play anybody in the non-conference. They avoid Ohio State. They avoid Oregon. They avoid Indiana. They're at Michigan and at Washington. Those are the two toughies. But their home schedules, Wisconsin, USC, Purdue, Minnesota, Rutgers, like they should win all those games. Penn State, if they're 10-2, they got a shot at making the playoff. Plus 450 at BetMGM. I'll take a stab with the Nittany Lions. Number 10 for me. I told you guys earlier in the show, I got a 25-1 team to make the college football playoff. This is where we get nuts. I'm going to be on an island here. But as we know, every year in the college football playoff, and I say every year, they've been doing it for 2 years now with the 12-team playoff. We've seen some crazy stuff. We had 2 group of 5 teams last year. We had Indiana the year before. Like every year, you're going to get an insane long shot. And this is the team that I think we get this year. The Wisconsin Badgers at 25-1. Yep, I'm doing it with Wisconsin. Luke Fickell is there. It's a must-win year for him. If you've followed college football at all, or Wisconsin, you know no team has had worse injury luck at the quarterback position than Wisconsin. It is uncanny how week 2, week 3 rolls around and their quarterback is hurt and out for the season. Wisconsin, I talked about how Penn State's schedule is easy. Wisconsin is the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. They don't play Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. They don't play Michigan either. Their toughest 2 games are at Penn State and at Iowa. Now, they also get Notre Dame to open the season. They're going to lose that game. And then a lot of people will just assume, well, first of all, nobody's going to pick Wisconsin to make the playoffs, but nobody's really going to pick Wisconsin after they play Notre Dame. With that schedule, folks, would it be crazy if they went on the road and beat Penn State or Iowa? No. All those home games, they can win. I mean, it's the Marylands, it's the Minnesotas, it's the Northwesterns. Like, that's their schedule. And Colton Joseph, who was at Old Dominion the last couple of years, comes over to be their quarterback. I was a big fan of his at ODU. So if he can stay healthy, Wisconsin's always going to have a good defense. Camp Randall's a tough place to play when they're winning. I think with how easy the schedule is, they finally have their quarterback. The Badgers will be my team I take a shot with at 25-1. All right, last two teams real quick here, and then we'll take a break. LSU plus 155. I'll put them in at number 11. I went back and forth on who was going to be that fourth SEC team for me. LSU's schedule is really tough, folks. Home against Clemson, home against Bama, home against A&M, home against Texas, at Ole Miss, at Auburn, and at Tennessee. That is a gauntlet. But Kiffin is the king of the portal. He's got a lot of talent on that team. I'm a big fan of Sam Leavitt, who was at Arizona State. I think LSU makes the college football playoff. And then my group of 5 team will be Boise State, who I think makes it in. Maddox Madsen is still there as their quarterback. He was there from the Ashton Genty years. Boise, they're always going to have a good defense. They're going to be good on the offensive line. They have the pedigree of one of the best group of 5 teams, which is always in their benefit. They do play Oregon and Western Michigan, who won the MAC last year, on the road. Going to be 2 tricky games, but I think Boise gets in. So there is my top 12. Notre Dame, Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, Texas, Miami, Bama, BYU, Penn State, Wisconsin, LSU, and Boise State. You might notice there's a team I do not have on there that's one of the betting favorites to win the national championship. We'll talk about that when we come back. And it's Spain and Belgium, the World Cup game today. PJ Glasser, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM, Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Alexei Zverev serving to go to the Wimbledon final, where he will meet the winner of Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon. PJ Glasser here with you. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM, Westwood One Sports. We'll update you when we come back for hour 3 on if Zverev does indeed finish the job and moves on to the final. We'll also talk some World Cup when we come back to kick off hour 3. We talked about the France-Morocco game to kick off the show. We got 3 more games to go in the quarters. Spain-Belgium later today from Los Angeles, and then England-Norway in Miami, and Argentina-Switzerland in Kansas City. So we will dive into all that coming up in about 10 minutes. But we were just talking in the last segment, my 12 teams to make the college football playoff. Notre Dame, Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, my top 4. I think those teams are all going to receive byes, and Oregon will win the Big Ten. Georgia will win the SEC. Texas is my 5. Miami, 6. Bama, 7. BYU, I like to win the Big 12 over Texas Tech, but I could change my mind potentially. We still got a little less than 2 months to go. But right now, BYU win the Big 12. They're 8. Penn State at 9, plus 450 right now on BetMGM to make the playoff. Wisconsin, I mean, that's my crazy take. Wisconsin to make the playoff, 25-1 at BetMGM with a very easy schedule. No Ohio State, no Michigan, no Indiana, no Oregon. LSU, plus 155. They get in as the 11. Lane Kiffin in his first year in Baton Rouge. I think they just squeak in. And Boise State, your group of 5 champion, they make it in as the 12. So you might notice when I ran through those 12 teams, somebody I didn't say is one of the betting favorites to win it all. A team that won the national championship 2 years ago. A team that a lot of people feel like might have the best player in college football in Jeremiah Smith. And they're actually the favorite at BetMGM to win the national championship at plus 600, followed by Notre Dame, Indiana, and Texas. Well, Texas was also the favorite to win the national championship this time last year, and they didn't make the playoff. And I think Ohio State is this year's Texas. I just think their schedule is too brutal. It's probably the toughest schedule I've ever seen Ohio State have. They play Texas in week 2. After Texas made the trip to Columbus last year, Ohio State goes to visit them. They also have to play Indiana on the road. They have to go to Iowa City and play Iowa. They play Nebraska on the road, and they play USC on the road. Now, Lincoln Riley is one of my favorite coaches in college football to fade on the road, but at home, his USC teams have been great. On top of those road games, Ohio State has to play Oregon at home, and they have to play Michigan at home. Folks, that's brutal. So I think much like Texas last year, when they lost to Ohio State, they could only afford to lose one more SEC game. They lost 2 and they were out. I think Ohio State could be in the same boat, where they lose to Texas in week 2, and then they can only afford to lose one more game in SEC play. And when you're having to play Oregon, Indiana, Michigan, USC on the road, Iowa on the road, is it crazy to think that they could lose 2 more games if they lose to Texas? I think they're last year's Texas Longhorns. I think that's Ohio State this year. So as talented as they are, that schedule makes me nervous. And also, Matt Patricia, that hire last year ended up working out for Ryan Day, so we think. I think having Caleb Downs had to do a big part of it. Arthur Smith is going to be your new offensive coordinator for Ohio State this year. Yes, that Arthur Smith. Maybe it works out. I'm going to bank on it probably not, because Arthur Smith is terrible. So Julian's saying, I think he's a good young quarterback. Again, you got Jeremiah Smith. You got some of these young studs at wide receiver, running back. I think the Buckeyes are going to miss out, folks. Schedule is too tough this year for the Buckeyes. Hour 3, and we come back. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports. PJ Glasser filling in for Nick Kostos.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports. I am PJ Glasser, filling in for Nick Kostos. You can listen on the Westwood One app, Sirius XM channel 375 as well. Got one more hour to go. Lots to talk about. We'll dive into the World Cup here in a minute. We got France and Morocco. Recap that match from yesterday. We got Spain and Belgium upcoming later today. And then the two matches tomorrow, England, Norway, and Argentina, Switzerland. Also going to talk some NFL during this final hour. Go worst to first. As a lot of you know, listening to the show in the NFL every year, we have a team that usually goes worst to first, where they finish last in the division the previous year, and then they win the division that following year. So with 8 divisions, we got 8 candidates, and I'll rank them 8-1 of the teams I think are least to most likely to win their division, and then we'll wrap up the show with my favorite bets for today. But let's start with the World Cup. And we have Spain and Belgium today. Right now on BetMGM, I am seeing Spain as a minus 175 favorite to win in regulation. If you like Belgium to win in regulation, like they did against the United States, they are plus 450, and the draw is plus 300 at BetMGM. So Spain has taken some money because they were minus 160. Now they're up to minus 175. They are the favorite as expected. The big question with this game today: how much stock do you take out of what you saw in the Belgium-US game? Because Belgium, the 4 prior games to that US game, did not look very good. They did not look convincing at all. 3 of their previous 4 games, they drew. They played a tie. Played a tie against Egypt. They played a tie against Senegal in that knockout round. This is a team that's number 9 in the world, according to FIFA rankings. They still have world-class players that are past their prime, not quite what they once were. The Romelu Lukakus, the Kevin De Bruynes. You do have Jeremy Doku there, and Thibaut Courtois, the goalie, is still one of the best in the world. But this team, before the U.S. game, has really not looked all that good. And they were fortunate to get by Senegal. They were down 2-0 in the 85th minute, had to score 2 goals in the final 10 minutes to tie that game up. Then they scored a penalty in extra time to beat Senegal and come back. So they really shouldn't have even played against the U.S. They win that game, though, in dominating fashion, 4-1. From the opening minutes of the game, you could tell the U.S. were just immediately outclassed. They were above their weight class. But how much stock do you take out of that game? Was that game more about Belgium being really good, or was that game more about the U.S. just being awful? And I really kind of think it's just more about the U.S. being awful, if I'm being honest with you guys. Belgium, they didn't score any like crazy, insane goals. The U.S. defense, their back line, Tim Ream, who has gotten just absolutely ripped to shreds online this past week, did not have his best day. I mean, Belgium was just winning easy balls at the goal, uncontested headers, uncontested volleys. And then we all know that third goal where, the goalie Matt Freeze just completely froze, and pun intended, he froze. And they just, they let up a rec soccer league goal that should never happen at that level. And as bad as the U.S. was, it was 1-1 in the 35th minute. And I kind of feel like if they don't give up that goal with Freeze to make it 3-1, I feel like there's a chance they might find the equalizer. And it's 2-2. And then you go to extra time, possibly penalties, and then who knows what happens. So as bad as the U.S. were, and as much as we all think it's the same old song and dance, and they can beat the Bosnias, They can beat the Paraguays, they can beat the Australias, but as soon as they step up and face one of these top European or South American teams, it's just a different kind of ball game. I really wasn't all that impressed with Belgium, to be honest. Like, you got to give them a ton of credit for going into that environment. Balogun comes back. The U.S. has looked like the better team. They're the underdogs. But to me, that just more so felt like a game where, okay, you want to put everything against us? You want to overturn Balogun's red card? This game is on American soil. You want to make us the underdogs? Fine. We'll show you. Thibaut Courtois, the Belgium goalkeeper, after the game, said that he was never worried about the United States. The Senegal game is the one that he was worried about. He thought that Senegal was the way better team compared to the U.S. And you could see the way that Belgium was playing, especially that fourth and final goal when Lukaku was doing the Trump dance. It meant something to him. And I don't know if this is true, but you can see when Lukaku scores that goal, he points up to the crowd. I kind of think he was pointing Infantino, the FIFA president, as well. They took that game personal. They wanted to make a statement. And that is what they did. And the U.S., they were not ready for the moment. That team that we saw those prior 4 games that were flying around, dominated possession, confident on the ball, generating opportunities, saw none of that, the Belgium game. And that's the big question today, because a lot of people like Belgium, especially at the price. A lot of people are picking that second chance option that you can in soccer, where you can pick Belgium to win or draw in regulation, or they're just picking them to qualify. They're picking them to pull the upset. I am not one of those people. I think Spain is the much better team than Belgium. And again, we fall into this trap a lot of time with sports, that just because a team like Spain was the pre-tournament favorite, they were so talked about, just because they're not as appealing to the eye as like a France has been, or an England has been, or has had a performance like Belgium did against the U.S., doesn't mean they're not the much better team than Belgium. And I think people are going to realize that today. Because again, the Portugal game, Portugal really hasn't looked all that impressive. And that game was 0-0 going into extra time. And Spain found the equalizer. But like, watching that game, did you ever kind of feel like Spain was in trouble? Did you ever really feel like Portugal was going to win? And I kind of think you could see that again today, where maybe it's 0-0 going into halftime. Maybe it's 0-0 going into the 65th minute. But at no point are you really ever going to feel like Belgium's going to win the game. Now, the thing about knockout round soccer is you could certainly have a game like that, and it goes to penalties. And then once you go to penalties, all bets are off. And a lot of these underdogs, that's the strategy that they play. That's the game that Paraguay wanted to play against Germany. That's the game that Switzerland wanted to play against Colombia. That's the game that Ghana and DR Congo wanted to play when they were going up against England. Anytime you're an underdog, you want to play that kind of game. And I think Belgium, they realize what they're up against today. And they're not going to be as attacking as I think a lot of people expect them to be in this matchup against Spain. I think they're going to play the kind of game that Brazil did against Norway, which, like, Brazil never should have played that kind of game, but Belgium should be playing that kind of game today against Spain. So I do like Spain. I laid the juice with a -160 in regulation. I think they're going to take care of business. I think Belgium's still overrated. I think a lot of people are still overreacting to that game against the United States. And I think today is going to be more of an indictment on maybe the U.S. than the Belgium game was, because so many people are taking an investment in Belgium after what they saw in that game, that I think they look like the team that we've seen for much of the tournament. And I still don't think Spain concedes a goal. I think they win. And as we talked about earlier in the show, I think Spain will take on France in the semis. A lot of people are going to like France in that game. And I think Spain is going to beat France and go to the final. Now, who will Spain match up with in the final? Well, we have 2 more games tomorrow. Norway and England from Miami on Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. To me, I think this is the most interesting game of the quarterfinals. Norway is a dark horse, I would say, making it this far. Not a lot of people had them. When the knockout round came out, I mean, Ivory Coast, that was a heck of a matchup in the round of 32. I actually thought Ivory Coast was going to win that game. Then they were underdogs to Brazil. They win that. They also beat a very good Senegal team in the group stage, as we saw Belgium struggle with. Now they got to go up against England. Man, I love games like this in sports. In a tournament setting, in a survive and advance and knockout round type setting, where you have a team like England, historically, that lets you down. They have all the talent in the world. People bet them to win these kinds of tournaments every year, and they always disappoint. They always come up short, and they usually lose in dramatic fashion. One of the best soccer matches I've ever seen was that England-Mexico game in Azteca. Unbelievably good soccer match. Azteca, I said this after those two teams played, I think Azteca is the hardest place to win a road game in sports. Whatever sport you want, college football, college basketball, NFL, English Premier League, you want, wherever, tennis, where you have that player playing in his home country, Andy Murray at Wimbledon, whatever you want. I think trying to beat Mexico at the Azteca is the hardest place to win in sports. Not only did England beat Mexico, they did it with 10 men in the final 40 minutes. In altitude, mind you. When we talk about gutsy, gritty wins in sports, we throw out those terms a lot, right? Oh, that was a gutsy win. Oh, that team fought. You could feel through your TV, England truly had nothing left in that game. When you talk about a team leaving it all out there, that's what England did in that game against Mexico. That is why we watch sports, for games like that. That was as entertaining as you could ever want a sporting event to be. It had red cards. It had penalty kicks. It had great goals. It had great saves. The environment was a 25 out of 10. It was cinema, as the kids like to say. That match rocked. England has to go from that to now a 5 p.m. game on a Saturday in Miami, dealing with the heat, where they're expected to win against a dangerous underdog in Norway and that bad man, Erling Haaland. In years past, these are the kind of games that England loses. This is the kind of game where they would get tripped up. You come from the high of beating Mexico in the Azteca, when your country just absolutely is on top of the world, man. Those England fans were up until 4 a.m. at the pubs watching those games. I got Hey Jude going up and down my TikTok. Wonderwall that we played earlier in the show, I've been singing that for the last 5 days. I mean, these people have been in heaven. As crazy as it is to say, for a World Cup quarterfinal game, can England actually not have a letdown in this game? Can they refocus, get ready for the job at hand, and prepare for Norway? Easier said than done. Here comes Norway again as the underdog, with Holland leading the way, playing with house money. If I'm an England fan, I am terrified of this game. Terrified. I love the draw at plus 260. I think we get extra time, and I think we probably get penalty kicks. I think England finds a way in penalty kicks to win this match, but it'll be brutal. Because as I mentioned to you guys, I think this is going to play out like the NBA playoffs did. France, Spain, OKC, Spurs. I don't think England can beat France, just like I didn't think the Knicks could beat OKC, but I think England can beat Spain, which I think is going to end up happening. I have not bet England to win the World Cup yet. If they win this match against Norway, I will be placing a wager on England to win the World Cup, because I think they beat Argentina, which game we're about to get into, but spoiler alert, I like Argentina. I think they beat Argentina, and then I think they're matched up with Spain in the final. I don't think England would beat France, but I think they can beat Spain. But this is their game. That Mexico game we all looked at and we're like, oh my God, trying to beat Mexico at the Azteca. I mean, like nobody ever does that. That's going to be a war. This game is going to be just as tough, honestly. And I'd be scared if I was an England fan because I don't have to tell you, these are the kinds of games where your boys choke. This is the kind of game where they lose. But I think they're going to find a way tomorrow to beat Norway. Oh, can't wait to watch that game. Going to be so good. Then we get the nightcap on Saturday night. Argentina and Switzerland. When we had Joe Malfa on earlier in the show, he compared Argentina to last year's Kansas City Chiefs, where like they never covered, from 2 years ago, where they never covered any spreads. They just found ways to win all these one-score games. They really like weren't that good, but they just kept finding ways to win games. And then they finally played a great team and they got exposed. I think that's what's going to happen with Argentina. I kind of compare them to like that TCU college football team that made the national championship. If you watch college football all year, yeah, TCU was good. That team had no business going undefeated in the regular season. And then they finally played Georgia and they lost 66-7 or whatever it was in the national championship game. You can survive in advance for only so long, but eventually you're going to get got. I don't think Switzerland is the team to do that. Even though they could have some success making this game a full 120 minutes, dragging Argentina into the mud, maybe it's a 0-0 game. Like they can do all those things. That's how Switzerland makes their living. This is going to be like playing against Iowa. It's going to be like one of those kinds of games for Argentina. But I think they find a way. I don't think Switzerland is the team to knock out Messi and Argentina from the World Cup. But man, all this team does is just play epic games. That Cabo Verde game was your ultimate David Goliath. Couldn't take my eyes off the TV. Amazing. The Egypt game, I still don't know how they won it. They had no business winning that game, let alone winning that game in regulation. The fact that that game didn't go to extra time is just insane. But they did. Credit to them. But it just reminds you how potent their offense can be, how tough they are to knock out. I think they get past Switzerland, but then I think England takes them out. I think when they go up against a team of that quality, that's finally where Argentina meets their match. They haven't played anybody yet this tournament. I mean, their group was a joke. Cabo Verde, unbelievable story. And look, they tied Spain. Credit to them. I think they're good. Argentina was like minus 2,200 to advance in that match. I mean, they shouldn't be playing Cabo Verde to extra time. And then you're losing 2-0 to Egypt. Like Argentina is one of these teams in sports that we see where they just play the level of their competition almost. They just find ways to win games and you can't really explain it. But eventually they're just going to run into a buzzsaw and they're going to lose. And I kind of think that's going to be England. So I like Spain today in regulation to beat Belgium. I like England-Norway draw plus 260 in regulation. I think England wins in penalties. And then I like Argentina to advance as well. I also don't hate a draw in that match, but I kind of think they're probably going to win like 1-0 in regulation. So I think we're going to get what we all want, unless we're from Norway, Switzerland, or Belgium, or we have futures on those teams. I think we're going to get France, Spain, England, Argentina semifinals. I think we're going to get England, Spain final. And I think we are going to get England. It's coming home, lads. I think they're going to win the World Cup. But I'm not placing a bet until they survive Norway because I am terrified of that game. But if England can survive against Norway tomorrow, I think they're winning the World Cup. I'll ride with England. Give me Jude Bellingham. Give me Harry Kane. Give me David Beckham. Give me Tom Holland. Give me any Brit you can find. I'll take England to win the World Cup. Here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. We'll take a break. We'll talk some NFL on the other side. Worst to first, PJ Glasser here with you.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. PJ Glasser filling in for Nick Kostos on this Friday. A couple segments left to go. Djokovic and Sinner are underway from Wimbledon. The winner will meet Alexei Zverev in the final. So have that on in the background here as we're doing the show. That should be a fun one today. Djokovic looking for maybe one more major in his illustrious career. So as we watch the tennis going on at Wimbledon, we got World Cup games over the next 2 days. Of course, never a bad time to talk about the NFL. And today we're going the 8 teams that have the best chance to go worst to first. Well, there are only 8 teams that can go worst to first because there are 8 divisions in the NFL. And I've power ranked all 8 teams from least to most likely that are going to win their division after coming in last place in the division this past season. We will start with number 8 out of the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Cardinals of all 8 teams that finished last in their division this past NFL season are least likely to win their division. Not really much of a hot take, folks, is it? You have arguably the 2 best teams in the NFL in that division, in the Seahawks and the Rams that played in the NFC title game last year. You have the Super Bowl champion in that division in the Seahawks. The 49ers are always a quality team. Health is always going to be the conversation with San Francisco, but more often than not, always a team that's in the playoffs. They were in the postseason last year, and as long as they remain relatively healthy this season, the Niners should once again find themselves in the postseason. In Arizona, they're still rebuilding. Jeremiah Love at number 3 was certainly a choice. As much as I love Love, and I love Jeremiah Love, heck of a football player. Don't really know if we should be taking a running back at number 3 when you have all those defensive studs that were available. Maybe could have even gone offensive lineman if you really wanted. Arizona's got a first-year head coach in LaFleur. And then what are they going to do at quarterback? Is it going to be Brissett? Is it going to be Minshew? Is it going to be Carson Beck? So not only do you play in the most top-heavy division in the NFL, not only do you have a first-year head coach, you don't even know who you're starting at quarterback. A lot of issues for Arizona. They are rebuilding. I think of all 8 teams, they are definitely the one least likely to make it, to win their division. Number 7, we're going to go with the Cleveland Browns. Another team that's rebuilding. They traded away arguably the best player in the NFL in Myles Garrett. Their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, is gone. They have a new head coach in Todd Monken, who I actually think is going to be a good stopgap coach for the Browns. Like, Todd Monken is what Cleveland needs. They need a no-nonsense, old-school dude that's just going to tell it to them straight. Much like Arizona, though, there is some uncertainty around the quarterback position. I think at this point, we're probably all assuming it's Deshaun Watson. It still could be Shador, but I would expect it to be Deshaun. Does it really matter who it ends up being for the Cleveland Browns? This team hasn't won the division in a billion years, and this isn't going to be the year that it happens either. As long as Lamar stays healthy, as long as Burrow stays healthy, and Mike McCarthy being, the king of just like 500 football, actually a really good regular season head coach, the Browns are just not winning the AFC North. I was on a show yesterday with our guy, Linnell Willingham, who does shows here on Westwood One Sports. He actually think the Browns could maybe make the playoffs. I'd love to have whatever Linnell's having. It seems lovely. But there's just no world in which the Browns make the playoffs, let alone win the division. I'll put the Browns at number 7. I see Dan in the chat going, the New York Jets are number 6. Actually, Dan, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to be number 6. I think the Raiders are going to be improved this year. I was a big fan of the Kubiak hire. I think he's a very good offensive mind, but you're starting Kirk Cousins. And it's like any team starting Kirk Cousins is not winning their division in the year 2026. How long of Kirk Cousins do we see is the question. It certainly could be like what the Giants did last year, where it is Russell Wilson the first 3-4 weeks of the season, you go to Jackson Dart, and then all of a sudden the Giants are a fun young team. That's what the Raiders could be this season. But again, the problem for the Cardinals, the problem for the Browns, the problem for the Raiders, they play in very top-heavy divisions. Kansas City missed the playoffs last year. We don't know what Mahomes is going to look like coming off the injury. I'm assuming he's going to be fine. I'm assuming he's going to play all 17 games. If he's there, the Chiefs are going to be a better team than the Raiders. They had all those one-score games go their way 2 years ago. They didn't have any go their way last year, but making an investment in Kenneth Walker in the run game, even though their secondary is a big question, I trust Andy Reid. I trust Steve Spagnuolo. And I think the Chiefs will be competitive. And then the Broncos were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year, even though I think the Broncos are going to regress. And Bo Nix is also coming off an injury. Their defense is still very good. Sean Payton's a very good head coach. And I think the Broncos will once again, if not be in the playoffs, certainly be in contention and be better than the Raiders. And then the Chargers. I don't want anything to do with the Chargers in the futures market in terms of winning the AFC, winning the Super Bowl. I will never trust Justin Herbert to be that guy. But all Jim Harbaugh does is win games, especially in the regular season. And Mike McDaniel hiring him as an OC was a great choice as well. Their offensive line, those guys should be back. Alton Slater, defense is pretty solid. You do lose Minter, but I trust Harbaugh in the regular season with Justin Herbert. I just like, where's Vegas going to win all these games? I mean, they got to play these teams 6 times. And if Kirk Cousins is starting at quarterback, your defense is still a mess. I just don't see it. I think the Raiders could be fun. Again, I think they maybe could be this year's New York Giants from last year. But even the Giants ended up getting the 5th overall pick. I kind of think that's where the Raiders are going to fall. I'll put the Raiders at number 6. We do have a New York team at number 5. I love the chat trying to guess the teams that I've picked in these rankings. The New York Jets are going to come in at number 5. And no, I'm not buying in on Geno. I think Geno's cooked. I think Geno's not very good. For me, though, those other 3 teams that I mentioned, too many good teams in that division. The Jets, you really only got to compete with 2. The Dolphins, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. The Patriots, I think, are going to regress big time. They're going to be like Texas A&M. When the Patriots finally had to step up in competition, they weren't very good. Drake May wasn't very good. It was the same thing with A&M last year. Patriots got a tough schedule, deal with all these Vrabel distractions. I do not think that Drake May is as good as everybody else. I think Drake May is very good, but I don't think he's like the next big superstar. I got to see more. I think they're your classic case of regression. People are going to compare them to what we saw out of Cincinnati a few years ago when Burrow and Cincy made that run, and then they've had some big-time Super Bowl hangover regression since then. I could see something similar with New England. Then you obviously got the Buffalo Bills, and as long as Josh Allen is at the helm, they're going to win double-digit games every single year. And he is quite literally the most durable quarterback that we have in the NFL. He has never missed a game. But if he does, the Bills are in trouble. And you got the Dolphins, and you got the Patriots regressing. There is a path there for the New York Jets. Even though Aaron Glenn is maybe the worst coach in the league, they still have a lot of work to do on that roster. I just think the Raiders, Browns, and Cardinals are in way more difficult divisions. Even though maybe the Jets could be worse than those teams, I'll put the Jets at number 5. The New York Giants come in at number 4. As many of you know listening to the show, I've done plenty of shows on the network. I am a Ravens fan. I despise John Harbaugh. I want the Giants to go 0-19 this season. That's not even possible, but I hope it happens. I hope they lose every game and then some. I don't think John Harbaugh is as good of a coach as a lot of Giants fans feel like he is. They think he's just going to come in there and turn things around. They think he's going to come in there and they're going to start winning Super Bowls. The thing you guys have to remember about Harbaugh's tenure in Baltimore is he always had proven Hall of Famers around him. He took over that job from Brian Billick. He had Ed Reed and Ray Lewis waiting for him on the defensive side of the ball. And then, oh, by the way, he had one of the greatest playoff quarterbacks of this era in Joe Flacco as well. What a lot of people don't remember about John Harbaugh is when Ray retired and Ed retired and Flacco was on the down part of his career, Harbaugh was getting ready to get fired. Then you know what Ozzie Newsome and the Ravens did? They drafted this guy, Lamar Jackson, who turned out to be pretty good. The Giants have a lot of young pieces. There's no question. They got Abdul Carter. They got Thibodeau. They got some of these guys on defense. They got Burns. Then on offense, you got Dart. You got Neighbors. I love the Isaiah Likely pickup. I'm really going to miss him. I absolutely love him. They got some pieces, but none of these guys are really proven, especially on the outside, offensive side of the ball. We've seen half a season from Jackson Dart. I'd love to know what he looks like when he's not running around making plays and getting concussed every single week. Scattaboo and Neighbors are coming back from major injuries. There's a lot of uncertainty around this team. And because John Harbaugh was the coach of the Ravens for 18 years, he won a Super Bowl, they were in the playoffs like every year, everybody just expects him to come in with all this young talent and figure it out. Harbaugh was at his best when he had proven talent. The Ravens are one of the best teams in the NFL at drafting players and having one of the best rosters in football every year. He always had great players. Now, Harbaugh might have good players at the Giants, but we have no idea. And what I love, too, about him going to New York is how much they struggled at closing out games in the fourth quarter, how much they struggled to hang on to double-digit leads. It's a really good thing. He had a lot of success not doing that in Baltimore. Really good thing. The king of holding on to leads in the second half in the fourth quarter was John Harbaugh. I have the Giants at number 4. A lot of people think that they could be the team to go worst to first. Not me. I still think they're going to finish last in the NFC East. All right, 3-2-1. This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans at number 3 of my teams to go worst to first. I think the Titans are going to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL this season. I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. I like the Brian Daboll hire as the OC. I like Robert Saleh this time around as a head coach. The biggest mistake that he made with the Jets was that he didn't call the defense. When Robert Saleh was in his first stint as defensive coordinator with the 49ers, you wanted to run through an absolute wall for that dude. He was yelling and screaming and chest bumping and high-fiving all his players after every stop, after every turnover. The ultimate player's coach. He goes to the Jets. It's like a complete 180. The dude is lifeless on the sideline. You don't ever see any emotion. You don't ever see him interacting with players. The Jets completely zapped all of his happiness out of him. And I think a big reason for that was because he didn't call the defense. Well, now take 2 with Tennessee, and he's going to call the defense. He's going to do the thing that got him hired for this job again in the first place. And I think that's a brilliant idea by Saleh. I love the Daboll hire. I think Carnell Tate's going to be a stud. At the time, I thought it was a little bit of a reach, drafting him at number 4 overall. But you know what? He's an Ohio State receiver. And last time I checked, those Ohio State receivers are pretty good. They turn out to be pretty good. And I think Carnell Tate's going to turn out to be pretty good. And all these teams that have taken weapons for their quarterbacks in these early rounds normally are right. I mean, we saw what Tet McMillan did for Bryce Young this past season. The Saints have obviously tried to do the same for Jordan Tyson. We're going to talk about them in a sec. I think Tennessee is going to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL. Their problem, too, is the division. The Texans and Jags both made the playoffs last year. I think both have a good shot at making it again this year. The Colts were the best team in football through the first 8-9 games of the season from a record standpoint. They were 7-1 when Daniel Jones was healthy. Then he gets hurt. They fall back down to earth. They miss the playoffs entirely. But again, it's like, where does Tennessee fit into all this? If the Jags just made the playoffs and they're going to be probably good again. I'm a big fan of Liam Cohn. Trevor Lawrence, not so much. Big fan of Liam Cohn. Texans are once again going to have one of the best defenses in football. And the Colts, when Daniel Jones was healthy, they're putting up points. They're a really good team. So even though I like Tennessee, I just think that the schedule again, I think they are not as likely to win the division as the other 2 teams. I'll put them at 3. We got the Lions and we got the Saints left in our top 2 spots. And I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions at number 2. We've talked about it for the last 3 or 4 years. The NFC North is the one division in the NFL you could make a case for all 4 teams and nobody would bat an eye. If somebody wanted to make the case for the Bears, you could hear it. Packers, sure. Vikings, yes. And the Lions. The Lions are the most talented team in that division on paper. I still feel that way. Offensively, Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Laporta, good offensive line pieces. Penei Sewell is one of the best players in the NFL. Defensively, they got one of the best pass rushers in Hutchinson. Branch is a good safety. I think they're the most talented team in that division. But again, the problem for them is the other 3 teams. The Packers are probably the safest bet in the NFL in terms of there's no variance with them. The Packers will not win fewer than 7 games this season, but they will also not win more than 12 games. You can pretty much bank that the Packers will win somewhere in between 8 and 11 games. It's just a question of, will it be closer to 8 or will it be closer to 11? And then will that be enough to win the division? The Bears are one of the most fascinating teams in the NFL. Ben Johnson's one of the best coaches. Their O-line's great. But they pulled so many games out of their butt in the fourth quarter that they had no business of winning. Is that sustainable? Does Caleb take a big stride in this next year with Ben Johnson? I don't know. And then Minnesota, you still got one of the best coaching duos in the NFL with KOC, Brian Flores. Kyler Murray getting this change of scenery with an offensive coach like Kevin O'Connell, I think is very interesting. And they got a good defense in Minnesota. So I put the Lions at 2 for the similar reason why I put the Titans at 3. I like the Lions. I think they have the most talented team in the division. But they also have the toughest division in football in terms of how good all the 4 teams are. So I'll put Lions 2. And that leaves us with the number 1 team that I think is most likely to go from worst to first in the NFL and win their division. And that is the New Orleans Saints. And the biggest reason being because of how bad that division is. Carolina won the NFC South at 8-9 last year. Tampa Bay was also 8-9. Atlanta was also below 500, and so were the Saints. And you could argue the final 4 to 5 weeks of the regular season that the Saints were the best team in that division. Tyler Shuck, is he going to be like a Will Levis where we see like a glimpse and we all think he's going to be good and then he turns out to be terrible? Maybe. Or does he just turn out to be pretty solid? I think Shuck's pretty good. As I mentioned, they drafted Jordan Tyson. Give Shuck another weapon to go along with Olave. You bring in ETN as well. And their defense is solid. I got to give Kellen Moore props too. Again, it's early. It's only 1 season. I thought he was going to stink as a coach. The Saints were the betting favorite last year to finish with the worst record in the NFL. And they had the 7th, 8th worst record in the NFL. And Kellen Moore looked like he coached some ball a little bit. So I think the Saints are going to be improved. I think they're going to compete for that division. But more than anything, the reason why they are atop this list is because of how pathetic the NFC South is. And much like the NFC North, you can make a case for all 4 teams, but I think the Saints probably have as high an upside, maybe outside of Atlanta, as any team in that division, certainly with the quarterback in Tyler Shuck. So those will be my 8, the way I rank the 8 teams, worst to first in the NFL. Cardinals at 8, 7 Browns, 6 Raiders, 5 Jets, 4 Giants, 3 Titans, 2 Lions, and number 1, the New Orleans Saints. We'll take a quick timeout, come back, wrap up the show, give out my best bets here. You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM, Westwood One Sports. PJ Glasser filling in for Nick Kostos.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back. Wrapping up the show, You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. PJ Glasser here, filling in. And a reminder that you can get an early payout on a 2-goal lead. Place a pregame bet on any World's Game match. If your team takes a 2-goal lead at any point in the game, your bet pays out as a win. The winnings are yours, regardless of the outcome of the game. Download the BetMGM app today. Please gamble responsibly. Awesome show today. Thanks a lot to Bill Zimmerman, Tyler Morales, Mike Brown behind the scenes, Dan and Laura as well. Great to meet them. Kenny, good seeing him also and talking to him. It was fun. I'll be back next Friday filling in for Nick on You Better You Bet. So looking forward to that. Got about 3 minutes or so left. And let's give out some bets here in the World Cup that hopefully will be winners. Spain and Belgium. Again, I got a lot going on Spain today. I mean, one of my hottest takes was that Spain is going to beat Belgium today, beat France in the semis, and then lose to England in the final. But I think Spain's going to come through today. Regulation, they're like minus 175 now at BetMGM. I still think that's a good price. Maybe you want to throw them in like a money line parlay with Yannick Sinner today at Wimbledon. He's battling Djokovic right now. Novak and him are tied 4-4 in the first set. So maybe you want to do something like that. I do think Spain is going to win in regulation, though. I think we're all reacting, and I say we, I think a majority of people are thinking Belgium might be able to hang today because of what they did to the U.S. I think that was more about the U.S. Spain has not conceded a goal this entire tournament. Their defense and goaltending has been fantastic. They still have plenty of offensive playmakers. I think they win, and I think they win in regulation. So I'll take Spain at minus 175. Let me get to 2 matches tomorrow. England and Norway. That's my favorite game of the quarterfinals. I cannot wait for this game. I think the draw is the play at plus 260. I think it's an evenly matched contest. I think this is the kind of game that England normally struggles. They normally lose in years past. I think this is normally a game where they go to extra time, where they go to penalty kicks. And if you're just an England fan, you just hang on to your butt and hope that they find a way to win that game. But I do like the draw in that match at plus 260. I'm seeing if I can find what penalty kicks are potentially in that game. Let's see. England to win in a penalty shootout 11-1. Kind of love that, if I'm being honest. So the draw is plus 260 in regulation for the game to go to extra time. I'd sprinkle a little something on England 11-1 to win in penalties as well. That game to me just has the feel of going the full distance. It should be an awesome match. And then Argentina and Switzerland in the nightcap on Saturday. I don't really have a good feeling on that one. Of all the games, that's probably the one I feel the least confident. I think you could also be looking at a draw in that game at plus 260. I think that could be another good bet. But honestly, if you have a boost, I think boosting the under, which right now BetMGM minus 155, 2.5 goals in regulation. If you can get a nice boost and boost the under to get somewhere around even money, I think that's your play. I don't think Switzerland scores, and I think Argentina scores 1, maybe 2 goals. I think it's very similar to what we saw at France-Morocco yesterday. Similar game, similar feel, similar result. So Spain to win in regulation. England draw, England-Norway draw at plus 260. Argentina-Switzerland draw at plus 260. And then if you can boost the under to 2.5, I would take that as well. Thanks again to everybody for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. This has been You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM here on Westwood One Sports with PJ Glasser filling in for Nick Kostos. We'll see you next Friday.